Hello and welcome back to our Monday briefing here on the Hibs Observer with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Craig Nisbet to take a look ahead to what I suppose is a rather important game for Hibs coming up this weekend. You can never give too much build up to an Edinburgh derby, so here we are right at the start of the week looking ahead to Hibs' trip to Tynecastle and what a big day it could be in the context of the season. Before we get started, though, as always, just a wee word for our sponsor, the Hibs Observer, is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs, so start your search today. Craig, thanks for joining us again. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good mate. I think it was, I think a good point in the end at the weekend there. So I think we need to be happy with that, and it gives us a bit of a foundation to build on for, like you say, is a very, very big game this weekend.
Do you think that could Saturday, just looking back on it, could be the sort of reset that Hibs needed? You know, like one of those sort of kind of in the trenches, backs to the wall, sort of back to basics defending. I mean, it's not often that you say Celtic Park was exactly what a team needs in domestic competition, but did it kind of feel that way a wee bit?
Yeah, I think there's certainly been no trouble attacking wise this season for us. You know what I mean? We've been quite exciting going forward, quite high XG coming out of most of the games. But it's been the other end that we've been. You know, it's funny because when you we've not been great in the context of the standards we set from the end of last season and the run that we went on. You know, when you kind of break it down. So, it's. I think you're right. I think it was Celtic Park was a bit of a make or break. I think if we went there and you got a 2-3-0 defeat, I think you would have been really, really worried going into this, especially after Hearts' form and then another positive result for them at the weekend as well. So this has just given us that, hopefully that stepping stone to go into the game with just a bit more confidence, knowing that we've kept that clean sheet. We've hopefully banished that near half-time, post-half-time goal giveaway that we seem to be doing. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can build on it going into Saturday's game.
Yeah, you made a good point there. It's like it's not been a disastrous start to the season for Hibs by any means, but the expectation's a wee bit different now, isn't it? It feels a bit different.
Yeah, I think you and Patrick said it on before. You know, because of Europe and the start and then the international break that comes and things like that, it does feel a wee bit bitty in terms of how the season kicks off, and you can't really get into a bit of a rhythm. I know we've got another international break shortly, but you're right. Once that's out of the way, then you feel like you can kind of get your teeth into things. So, and then obviously you've got like League Cup games as well. You know, there's other things that are going on, so it is quite a strange start to the season. But yeah, I think going into the derby, I think you look around. Obviously, Hearts have had a tremendous start, but you know we're there and thereabouts in the league. We're not a million miles off getting into the sort of top 3, top 4. I think the disappointing thing, I think from a fan point of view, just from speaking to people and you know going to the games, is that the run of fixtures we had, it was quite kind to us.
Yeah.
And I think when you drop points in those fixtures, you then don't give yourself any room to make mistakes, and you have to have these big performances in the bigger games. So I think that's potentially maybe where a bit of the frustration lies.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's maybe more of sort of that kind of initial run felt like an opportunity to set your stall out a wee bit. As you said, like kind enough in terms of the fixtures, especially some of the home games you'd expect Hibs to be winning. And it's I suppose to come away with that with just one win so far is it's not ideal. But then undefeated. So it's been a kind of it's a weird start to the season to be able to analyse. And it's again, as you've touched on there, and as me and Patrick have probably discussed before, it's just it can get into sort of mid-October through to November time before you feel that the season really gets a chance to carry any sort of consistent momentum. And then before you know it, you're into the sort of festive period with all the fixtures that comes with that. And it's kind of around about that time, maybe you start to get a better feel of, you know, who's going to end up where, who's going to be in and about, what kind of part of the league. But for now, I think it's just you can take this fixture at the weekend, and it does kind of, to an extent, probably does exist in its own wee bubble, its own wee vacuum.
But also, we're probably the perfect example of the fact that our season looked dead in the water, at that point, and from that sort of time, October, November time, we went on that run. Now, I'm not suggesting that we do that again, because that was pretty painful to that first couple of months, as we know, having to discuss everything. But it just shows you, if you can put a bit of a run together, how far you can progress. And we were bottom of the table and ended up getting to third. So we've started better than we did last season with running fixtures arguably a bit easier this time round, but but the squad's in a better place than it probably was at that point last season as well. So you hope that if you can have a positive result on Saturday, international break, and then come back, that you can then kind of settle in for just that league campaign going into Christmas and start picking up more wins. Because I think that's where I think the frustration will be, that so many of these games have been within our grasp, and we've been maybe quite comfortable, or we've had our moments that we should then see the game out, and we've not. And I think that's where people get probably more frustrated than just a team coming out and spanking you 3-0 or 4-1 or something like that, and you've not laid a glove on them. I think when you know that the players are arguably better than that, and they should see these games out, and we shouldn't be conceding the type of goals that we have done, it probably just creates a little bit more frustration, I think, among the fans.
It's the what if element, and sort of what ifs are what you don't want to be coming away from this weekend's game with. So, I mean, let's get on to it. Big decisions, face managers every time they go into one of these games. No, David Gray's going to be no different this weekend. So, I mean, how would you, if it was up to you, how would you be looking to approach this game? Hearts they're quite a kind of front foot, aggressive, high pressing side from what I've seen of them. They've been playing a 4-4-2. They've obviously got a lot of new signings mixed in with guys who have been in and around it for quite a while. What's your kind of overriding thoughts going into this?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think they seem to have settled in the 4-4-2, and then I think from what I've heard, with Harry Milne, they're quite able to switch to a 3, and they're quite flexible. I think in terms of their shape and how they can adjust, and obviously Kizarides and Braga, and they seem to have reinvigorated Shankland a bit as well. So they've got a real attacking threat there as well. So I think, if you knowing David Gray in terms of what we've seen when he goes into these games, I think that Celtic performance probably gives him the blueprint for what he would probably go and likely do at Tynecastle. And I know that might upset a few fans by thinking, well, we're going there just to sit back or doing. It'll be very different. It'll be different to Celtic in terms of that. Derbies are always different, but I think certainly Salinger keeps his place. I think Hanley keeps his place as well, as we said in the reaction episode just after the Celtic game. And then I think you probably do keep O'Hora in there as well. Mm-hmm. I think the question he'll potentially have is about Nicky Cadden, and Hearts obviously not really recruit. Well, they have recruited a right back injured. They've I think McEntee's been playing at right back, and they've sort of switched a couple of players in and out there. So down that side is maybe where there is a potential area to exploit. And the question is, do you start Nicky Cadden in that position and go for it? Do you maybe bring him on as the game develops? I think that's probably one of his biggest questions. He's got other ones that we'll probably get to, but I think that kind of left centre back, left wing back spot is probably his biggest one. Because Obita, I thought he was very good. He probably went under the radar actually. I don't think we spoke about him on Saturday, but
he to do that.
Yeah, but that also Maeda was actually playing on the right hand side and never really got a sniff. It was quite a surprise to see him out there on the right, but Obita sort of managed that fairly well. And we said Iredale, that was probably the best he's looked, since last season. He's kind of had a tough start. So I think that's probably his biggest question is, do I stick with Obita and the more defensive side, or do I roll the dice and get Nicky Cadden in there?
Yeah, I would maybe suspect Obita, just because maybe if it was at home, I would maybe be more inclined to think maybe he could go a bit more attacking when Nicky Cadden in there. But I suppose it's not that it's not like Abita doesn't give you anything going forward. There is still quality there, maybe not to the same extent as Nicky Cadden, who's obviously played most of his career as a winger, but he still gives you something going the other way. Does Jordan Abita, and maybe that just bit of extra defensive solidity as well. So I mean, that left centre back role. I mean, what do you? It could. I mean, Iredale could keep his place conceivably. I thought he looked, as we talked about on Saturday, it was a bit more like him from what we've seen of him. Well, it was close to what we saw from him last season, I felt. I mean, but are you keeping Grant Hanley at the centre of that back three instead of Rocky Bashiri? Do you move Hanley into the left centre half and bring Bashiri back in? It's a tricky one, I think, because it's, Bashiri's been so central to everything that was sort of good about Hibs over the past few months. Not just defensively. Like, think about the amount of important goals he's come up with. But then that back three on Saturday there just really seemed to click. It's a decision I wouldn't want to have to make, I don't think.
Yeah, I think firstly on your question about left centre back, I think, as we said, Hearts are very on the front foot, pressing. Now, we're not popping the ball out from the back all the time, and now that we've got Salinger who can go long and has actually got a kick that, this will be quite disrespectful, John Smith, but a kick that can clear his own half and get up the pitch, we're not as under pressure to go there, and he can clip it into the wide areas as well. So I can't imagine we'll overplay, but if we are playing out from the back, I do think I think Iredale is stronger in that kind of role than Obita. I think Obita can sometimes, some of his clearances, he can snatch at them a little bit, and I don't think he's as comfortable there. So I would keep Iredale in there. And you were totally right to point out, by the way, Obita does actually have quite a good attacking threat. He's actually got a really good delivery as well. And then in terms of Rocky, it's funny because we obviously briefly spoke about that on Saturday, but I was thinking it's quite ironic for him that, it was like a sliding doors moment that allowed him to get his place in the team and then keep it and then build into it. And it would be really ironic if it was a sliding doors moment that took him out of the team, and just being away for personal reasons and Hanley's come in. But that's the nature, that's kind of what we've wanted for years, was like really, really stiff competition. And I think that's what we've got. And it's a shame that he missed out, and it's a shame. And, obviously the team had a good performance, but I think you have to go with Hanley based on that. I think you said in your article today, like, he's a defender that loves defending, and he sniffs things out and he gets blocks in, and Rocky does that too. But you could see there at the weekend just how good Hanley is in that role. And I think at Tynecastle, especially, you can imagine the opening part of the game being pretty intense. I think you just want him there in the middle, clearing his lines and organising people like he did really well on Saturday. And I think just because we've got quite a lot of new players bedding into the squad now and things like that, especially in the middle of the park, which we'll get to, I think you just want somebody there with that experience just to keep everybody calm and show and that leadership, which I think we need at the back.
Yeah, he doesn't. He never looks flustered, Hanley, does he? He's always quite in control. Never looks good faith. I mean, I suppose you would be with the amount of experience he's got. So it's a big decision, that one, and I'm really intrigued to see what David Gray goes with, because it's like we've said, it's one of the most important ones, and that back three, the sort of balance and the combination looked pretty good at Celtic Park at the weekend. So I suppose just time will tell on that one. The same as it will in the middle of the park, because I think past couple of games, Great is he seemed to almost settle on Dan Balasa and Miguel Chaiwa, but obviously Chaiwa came off injured at half time at the weekend there, hamstring. He said he was feeling his hamstring, so I think David Gray didn't seem overly concerned about it when he talked about it, but at the same time, hamstring ones they can be just by default. Sometimes they always need a bit of time, even if it's not a particularly serious one, which it didn't sound like. It can still take a bit of time to get over. So I mean, we're purely speculating on that at the moment. We'll probably not find out how Chaiwa is until Hibs press conference, which will be on Friday this week before the game. But I mean, if he doesn't make it, for example, it does create a wee bit of an issue, because there's a nicer sort of balance, I think, like a player of Balassa's type alongside Chaiwa. I think when Balassa came in, and Gay spoke about him, he sort of profiled him in the same way as sort of Dylan Levitt, and being like a sort of, a guy who wants to get on the ball and control the game, make passes, as opposed to a sort of Chaiwa type who's a bit more all action, a bit more on the front foot, aggressive, does the physical side of the game well. So if, for example, Chaiwa wasn't available, you would then maybe be looking at having to bring Josh Mulligan in off the right to give you that balance back in the middle of the park. Would that be fair to say? Do you think that's the way? I mean, again, I said I'm more speculating a wee bit here at the moment, but the fact that he has been injured does create a wee bit of a question, and it could be another problem to solve.
Yeah, I think that's probably his biggest one. The left side that we've obviously discussed, but yeah, the impact that Chaiwa's injury has on Mulligan as well. And obviously McGrath. I mean, we probably have to talk about him because he's kind of tied into that position as well. So I think obviously he was feeling his Achilles and went down, tried to play on a bit, and then obviously had to come off. So I mean, he'll be torn between if they get through training okay this week and it's light, do you start them and just try and get as much out of them as you can, or if certainly somebody goes. I mean, you could. I think bringing Mulligan inside seems like a sensible option, but then that will mean I've seen that Megwa's not really been in. He wasn't in the squad on Saturday. I don't think.
Slightly, no.
So that means it probably would be Chris Cadden who came on. Now he's obviously can come in and slot into that role, but obviously a lot of fans were wanting Mulligan out there and in that position. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but you do it like Chris Cadden is there to come in and to play that role, and if it maybe having somebody a bit more defensively minded and defensively oriented isn't such a bad thing for that position. But I do think it's then what you do with McGrath if he's not fit, because you could kind of go for a 3 and have Barlaser, Levitt and Mulligan and have it quite a deep midfield really, and maybe allow Mulligan to break if we get the chance. Or the most likely fix would, as we did on Saturday, is Campbell coming into that area as well. So he's got a couple of options in there anyway. Or you maybe bring Hoylett in. I was thinking maybe for that experience to come in that kind of number 10 position. I mean, Hearts, if they set up how they have been, they only normally have 2 in the middle, don't they, with Bellingham and Devlin mostly. So you're not as pressured, I suppose, or pressurised into covering a 6 like, on Saturday with McGregor and sort of, Bowie Boyle and stuff, having to try and keep an eye on that. So you might be able to squeeze in Hoylett into that position and have Barlaser and Mulligan in there.
Aye, plenty of decisions. McGrath is a big one though, because he offers so much, and I think there's, he's started almost every game since he's been available, because there's kind of, I think in terms of guys who can play that position, he is the one who has the most rounded skill set, isn't he?
Yeah, I think you can, especially when you see him playing in the number 10, which he did against Falkirk. At times he's been deployed kind of left of in that sort of 3-4-3, and I don't think he's had as much influence in there. But the Falkirk game, you can see when he picks the ball up central, he's so comfortable driving forward and creating and getting into the box. And against Celtic, it was always going to be very different. He wasn't going to get those opportunities, but you're right. We've even seen as well in some games in Europe, he got dropped into play sort of central midfield and like a deep line central midfielder and kind of looked at home and quite comfortable in there. So you're right, in terms of if you were taking bits of Levitt, Mulligan, Hoylett and Campbell, you probably get a McGrath type of player in terms of what he can do on the pitch. So yeah, he would be the one that you're crossing your fingers that he makes.
Would you be tempted to make a big call up front? Does Thibaut Clige, does he deserve a start for you? Did I see you posting about that at some point? Was that you? Was that
maybe.
Might have been
No, I do. For a wee while now, I've felt that he deserves a run. I think he deserves a run of games. I think the cameos off the bench are tricky for him. It's tricky to get into the game really and build that relationship with Bowie. I do feel that Boyle's obviously he's popped up with goals, and he's like the penalty against Falkirk. He obviously had the goal that got chopped off against Rangers, and but I just feel that he's not an out-and-out striker, Boyle, and we're kind of looking like we're playing with a 2 now. You know, we're kind of Bowie's sort of up there, McGrath's a bit deeper, and then and I just feel like Clegy can maybe offer that in his hold-up play as well. You know, I think it looked quite neat and tidy against Livingston, and other cameos he's made off the bench. It looks good, and I just think the secret's out with Bowie now, so teams are kind of targeting him a bit. He's still a young guy, you know, despite, you know, he's still quite young in terms of games and experience and things like that. So I just think at least Clegy can give us those extra options. And listen, Boyle can drop in and come to feet, but it's not his game. You know, he wants to be in behind. So I just sort of feel that Clegy deserves a run of games. Would I necessarily throw him in for this game? I can't. I don't know. I don't think David Gray. I just don't think that's his. But then he did it with Chaiwa, so I've got no idea what Gray's thinking really. But I just, you know, he's obviously seeing Clegy in and out. And listen, his decision around Chaiwa was the right call. You know, for Alassane Mane, it wasn't, and it seems like that's not really worked. But for Chaiwa, it was a great decision because he's come in and he's really just slotted in and looks like he's played here for a long time. So obviously they're looking at him in training and maybe not quite seeing what they want to see him for starting games. But I do think eventually he's going to need to get a run of games under his belt. You know, Boyle came off earlier than sort of usual, I think, on Saturday. So I don't know. I would like to see it, you know, personally. But I just think if you're having to make all the changes that we've just discussed, like, and all these decisions around sort of centre half and left centre back and right back and midfield and attacking midfield, that you maybe just want to leave a bit of consistency up top.
Yeah, I think that is probably the more likely outcome. I think possibly because that would be a big call. But I mean, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. I think things will become clearer throughout the week if we get an idea of what the injury situation is heading into the game. That being said, that David Gray, he is a very cards close to the chest kind of guy when he gets asked about who's fit and who's not. So I don't know. It could be up until the teams come out before kickoff on Saturday. So I think for now, though, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll have plenty of build-up heading into the game. I've written a piece that you'll be able to read quite soon. It's just looking at what Hibs can expect from Hearts, really, and it sort of ties in with this discussion, quite a lot of it, how that might influence the decisions that David Gray has to make. Patrick today was speaking to former Hibs midfielder Kevin Thompson. He was offered his thoughts heading into the game this weekend, so you'll be able to read that on the website and watch it on a YouTube channel from 10:30 p.m. tonight. So do keep an eye out for all that, and obviously there'll be plenty more build-up heading into the game this weekend. Thanks to Craig for joining us and for his insight, and thanks to you folks again for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. I hope you have a good week, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Cheers.